Assalamualaikum to Madam Mazana and everyone. In this video, we would like to present about BITHAMAN AJIL home financing. So let's start with the presentation. Home is a basic necessity for human life. Everyone needs a shelter for rest, sleep, comfort and protection from sun and rain. It is a place to dwell in comfort with family. Therefore, owning a good home is an aspiration of everyone. People fulfill this need by building a home on their own, purchasing it, or renting it from others. Indeed, payment for home mortgage normally takes a good chunk of one's monthly income. Conventional home mortgages are, of course, interest-based and forbidden in Islam. Accordingly, Islamic financial institutions have introduced a number of Sharia-compliant modes for home ownership, the dominant of which is the BITHAMAN AJIL. The BITHAMAN AJIL or BPA is basically a sale contract which provides the buyer the benefit of a deferred payment, whereby the deferred price of the sale object carries an additional profit. It is an extension of the murabahah contract, whereby the commodity exchange is delivered immediately but the sale price with profit is paid in installments over a long period. BPA is a facility provided by the financier to assist the customer pay the cost of financing, such as a house over the tenure of financing in 2 years at a fixed rate determined by the financier. The financier initially buys the house from the customer, cost of financing amount, and sell it back to the customer plus of its profit margin. As the seller of the property, the Sharia requires the bank to hold ownership of the property and to hold all liabilities arising, including defects. But currently, BPA documentation shows that the bank merely acts as a financier rather than a seller and excludes itself of all liabilities.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Next, I will explain regarding area of improvement of BITHAMAN AJIL or BBA in the contract. Firstly, profit rate discharged in BBA contract. To improve this, Islamic institution must supply Qardul Hasan in the contract of BBA. Qardul Hasan is a zero return loan that which does not consider any profit return but more as financial help to those who in need. In other words, the borrower only needs to pay back the principal amount of money without any additional amount of money. Islamic financial system allowed loan activity but prohibited any kind of transaction that involve element of riba, qarar, and masir. Thus, to avoid any of those elements in the transaction, the repayment should be without any increment on its principal amount by the concept of Qardul Hasan. For an example, a customer approached the Islamic bank and decided to loan an amount of 100 ringgit and agreed period repayment is 2 months. The customer has to repay the principal amount within the time agreed and in the same amount of principal borrowed. The law of Sharia does not prohibit the borrower to pay an additional amount at his absolute discretion as a token of appreciation. This additional amount is known as hibah. This is so-called hibah is considered haram if only the amount is fixed at the beginning of the contract as a term of financing. In Islamic banking institution, instead of imposing interest rate to the customer, they charge profit rate to the customer as reliant to the rate on market interest. However, in practice, Islamic and conventional banks is alike, as the purchaser buy the property first and then look for financing. They consider BITHAMAN AJIL or deferred selling as the trading interest which contain riba al-faiz since there was an increase in the selling price. In Surah Al-Baqarah verse 275, Allah has stated, Allah has permitted trade and forbidden riba. Secondly, the execution of property purchase agreement PPA and property sale agreement PSA that conduct simultaneously. In order to improve this, we need to separate the execution of PPA and PSA by several hours. In PPA sale, the bank as the seller must possess ownership of the asset before a sale can be made. However, there is no evidence to show that the current practice in Malaysia where the bank physically purchase the asset from supplier or vendor before resell it to the customer. The goods are only traded or credit document or manifest on paper. The first agreement, property purchase agreement, and the subsequent second agreement, property sale agreement, is expected signed immediately after the first agreement involved the same asset as the first agreement. The difference from the two agreements being lies is sale from the customer to the bank and sale from the bank back to the customer. BBA, as currently practiced in Malaysia, differs from the theoretical BBA, whereas at no time does the bank really own the asset. Although the bank has executed PPA and PSA as the contracts are conducted simultaneously, the bank has no time to acquire the ownership. Thus, the bank might end up selling something that is not yet its possession. Regarding this, Prophet Muhammad SAW has said, "Do not sell something that does not belong to you," narrated by Al-Tirmidhi. Therefore, the bank actually does not hold any kind of ownership but merely stated in the agreement. Thus, the current practice of BBA in Malaysia is not compliant with Sharia.
Next, in BBA instrument, sharing of financial contributions is needed in order to purchase the desired asset. These financial contributions between compromised parties indirectly involve partnership. Hence, the asset is owned by both partners. Therefore, risk and asset liability shall be borne by the two contracting parties. However, the existing BBA instrument does not consider any ownership transfer. In order to ensure that lessee has sole ownership of the asset, purchasing the ownership from the lessor should be fair without any doubt in terms of Sharia law. The rental payment in order to purchase the ownership from the lessor will apply the flexible sharing ratio. Flexible sharing ratio is a model developed through identity ratio. Identity ratio is based on the percentage of ownership. Referring to the formula of mathematical modeling by BITHAMAN AJIL, BBA, it was found that there exists a financial contribution partnership between the lessor and the lessee. However, the share of this contribution is not used as a priority in the transfer of ownership, whereas the ownership of the lessor will diminish in its periodic payment terms charged and lessee ownership will increase over time. The last improvement method is by allowing the rate to be based on variable rate. Instead of imposing the interest to the customers, Islamic banks charge a profit rate which is reliant on the rate of market interest. The problematic arise in BBA cases that lead to the dispute are due to the bank making a claim for the full sale price as stipulated in the property sale agreement (PSA) because the bank have a legal right. And for most cases attracted much public attention is that the way how the bank practitioner calculated the outstanding amount to be repaid by borrower who had defaulted on their BBA contract. Most of the dispute cases that passed to the court were won by the bank. According to Sharia, the principles that been allowed by Hanafi, Shafi'i, Maliki and Hanbali for Islamic transactions are the price must be fixed and the duration of payment or period of payment. Any difference in the price or the period make it invalid. In the contract of PPA, the bank sells the house to the customer at a markup price. All the jurists including Maliki, Hanafi and Hanbali are in the opinion that this kind of a contract is forbidden, except Al-Shafi'i and Al-Tahri.
Now we have known about the BITHAMAN AJIL product, but just like the others contract, it also has pros and cons. The main issue that was highlighted the most in BITHAMAN AJIL product is the BITHAMAN AJIL house financing. Just like the conventional bank, Islamic banking institution also provide Islamic house financing using concept BITHAMAN AJIL. House is one of essential needs for every human being. BITHAMAN AJIL product is the most popular type using an Islamic banking institution to provide Islamic house financing. BITHAMAN AJIL product is not only give financing to the house but also to the vehicles, property and other consumer goods. BITHAMAN AJIL is said to be based on murabahah concept, which is the sale price is added up with the profit. Using this contract, Islamic Bank will give finance to customer who wishes to acquire an asset with a deferred payment for specific period or by installment. The issue that was occurred based on BITHAMAN AJIL concept is the unsatisfactory customer when it comes to the early redemption or in the event of default, because BITHAMAN AJIL carries a higher financing balance compared to the conventional housing loan. Many jurist opinion also did not agree with the BITHAMAN AJIL concept. Maliki and Hanbali scholars do not permit BITHAMAN AJIL that has concept of Bai'at because it is a backdoor to the riba. Referring to Shafi'i school, BITHAMAN AJIL are permissible and a valid contract because it takes a consideration of the contracting party's intention. As a result, State Islamic Bank has provided initiative and introduced another Islamic house financing product, which is namely as Musyarakah Mutanakisah, that it was seen as a better alternative to the BITHAMAN AJIL, and it was believed to be a better option. Musyarakah is a form of partnership which is based on profit and loss sharing. Musyarakah has been practiced before the Prophet Muhammad's first revelation, and since then it has been assimilated as a part of Islamic jurisprudence. Examples of Musyarakah financing are structuring project financing, credit financing, asset financing, and others. One of the common Musyarakah applications in the asset financing is Musyarakah Mutanakisah, which is diminishing partnership. In this concept, customer and Islamic banking institution will jointly acquire and own the property. Then, Islamic bank will lease its share of the property to the customer as an owner tenant, promises to acquire periodically the Islamic bank ownership of the property. The customer will pay rental to the Islamic banking institution under ijarah contract, which partially contribute to increasing their share of the property. In other words, the portion of payment or installment received by the customer should be used towards the gradual expansion of the Islamic banking institution share. At the end of ijarah term and upon payment of all this rental, the customer will acquire all the financial share, and the partnership will come to an end, with the customer being the sole owner of the house. However, even Musyarakah Mutanakisah was a better alternative in Islamic house financing, but not all the Islamic banking institutions in Malaysia provide this contract because there is no interest charge or advance profit that can give benefits solely to the Islamic banking institution. Compared to the BITHAMAN AJIL product, customer will always end up buying 4 times higher than the original cost that will affect the lower income group because it only gives benefits solely to the Islamic banking institution. Musyarakah Mutanakisah is a better option than BITHAMAN AJIL in terms of less risky and in the case of default. Furthermore, Musyarakah Mutanakisah is recognized as a more authentic model in providing home financing facilities. The primary invention that customer apprehended Musyarakah Mutanakisah home financing fulfill their necessity better than the debt financing. The Sharia scholar also conclude that Musyarakah Mutanakisah has fairness, justice, and satisfy the well-being of individual and society. On the other hand, as the bankers, they also support Musyarakah Mutanakisah implementation in the concept of its pricing and operation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is SYAZANI binti ZOLKEFLI. Now, I would like to explain about the advantages of a new Sharia contract to be applied, which is Musyarakah Mutanakisah. Musyarakah Mutanakisah has several benefits for the Islamic banks and for the economic operators. So, there are few advantages of Musyarakah Mutanakisah house financing when compared to BITHAMAN AJIL BBA house financing. One of the advantages of Musyarakah Mutanakisah is a cheaper and affordable mode of financing for home financing. For the perspective of the customer, the Musyarakah Mutanakisah can be seen rather than the asset financing through BITHAMAN AJIL or BBA. Furthermore, BBA puts the customer under pressure and bring them hardships. Moreover, because of the benefits sharing theory, Musyarakah Mutanakisah is better funding option when compared to BITHAMAN AJIL. The second advantage is for the Musyarakah Mutanakisah model. There is no interest or riba and advance profit. It is based on the concept of rental payment and redemption of the bank's property share when compared to BITHAMAN AJIL, which stimulates a debt-based manner of finance. In Musyarakah Mutanakisah, the selling price also always represents and reflects the market price, and rental payments are influenced by market forces, whereas in BITHAMAN AJIL, the markup price is higher and above than the market price. So the BITHAMAN AJIL or BBA does not reflect the real price of the asset. The balance of financing under the Musyarakah Mutanakisah model will never exceed the original price of the asset at any point of time. The third advantage of Musyarakah Mutanakisah is that the Musyarakah Mutanakisah contracts funding time can be reduced, which gives benefit for both banks and consumers. The former will get funds that will be invested in the new project and subsequently reinvested. In a shorter amounts of time, the latter can obtain the necessary asset. So we can see that Musyarakah is more convenient and flexible when compared to BBA and conventional. Fourth, the advantage of Musyarakah Mutanakisah is the financing and the payment of installment as well as the rent can be changed or adjusted to reflect market developments. It makes the Musyarakah Mutanakisah less vulnerable to external factors like interest rate and inflation. It also gives financial institutions a better way to manage the liquidity risk. Next, the advantage is that Musyarakah Mutanakisah follows and in line with the Maqasid Syariah that promotes maslahah, people welfare by making easier to customer to finance the asset. It helps them fulfill and meet their needs in easier way while complying with the teaching of Sharia principle. It also eliminates people hardship and serve the public interest, which is a good thing. Musyarakah Mutanakisah contract value the property using the commodity price. In BBA or conventional financing, customer will be burdened and difficult for paying over the valued price of asset or property. The last advantage is when it has been argued that in case of inflation, the use of Musyarakah Mutanakisah financing protects the financial institution from the negative and bad effects of inflation, whereas the BBA financing is affected. Other than that, each share should be sold at their current market value. This way, the effects of inflation could be taken into consideration. Therefore, from the point of view of financial institution, Musyarakah Mutanakisah financing technique are suitable and better than BBA or conventional loans, since the financial institution can protect a percentage of the value of the asset. This way, when the asset appreciate with inflation, the shares of the financial institution appreciate as well. Furthermore, if the asset or property is sold, the financial institution share will increase due to capital appreciation. In conclusion, the Musyarakah Mutanakisah is an equity-based financing technique available for Islamic banks, and we also can see that there are many advantages of Musyarakah Mutanakisah housing financing rather than by BITHAMAN AJIL or BBA. The scholars agreed that it is best and better option to implement Musyarakah Mutanakisah for house financing. This model is acceptable in Malaysia and it was approved by Sharia Advisory Council. The concept of Musyarakah Mutanakisah is applicable not only to house financing but also to other forms such as purchasing a car, financing working materials and equipment. Musyarakah Mutanakisah could potentially be used to alleviate poverty through microfinance or to finance small and medium-sized business, and also seen to promote the welfare of the people. I think that's all from us. Thank you.